It was an ordinary day on Earth, people going about their daily routines, unaware that the world as they knew it was about to change forever. The morning sun rose over bustling cities, casting a warm glow on the streets. In coffee shops, people sipped their drinks. In offices, workers typed away at their desks, and children ran to school, laughing with their friends. Everything seemed peaceful, but this calm would be shattered in an instant. Without warning, the sky above Earth began to darken. A strange rumble echoed across the atmosphere, followed by a series of bright flashes that lit up the sky. Panic spread as thousands of people looked up, unsure of what they were seeing. And then, as if a curtain had been pulled back, a massive fleet of alien warships appeared from nowhere, their cloaking technology failing as the ships descended upon Earth's atmosphere. The invading force was vast. Thousands of ships, each armed with advanced weaponry and seemingly unstoppable. The city's skyline was soon filled with fire as explosions rocked the streets, tearing apart buildings and turning entire neighborhoods into rubble. Cars flipped through the air, people screamed in terror, and in the chaos, no one had any idea what was happening or why. The skies themselves seemed to bleed with fiery trails as the invaders unleashed their weapons. Buildings collapsed in a storm of concrete and glass. Fires broke out across the land, and the earth trembled under the weight of the attack. Panic ensued as millions of citizens tried to flee, but there was no escape from the wrath above. In the midst of the destruction stood Bonner, a battle-hardened soldier. He had seen wars, been part of countless missions, but this was different. His team had been sent out just hours before the attack, responding to a mysterious signal that had come from deep space. They had no idea what it was, only that it was strong, consistent, and coming from an unknown source. It wasn't until they arrived at the signal's point of origin that everything went wrong. Bonner and his team were in the middle of their investigation when the attack began. They watched from their position, hidden in a remote area. As the first strike hit Earth, the shockwave sent debris flying in every direction, and the sound of explosions echoed for miles. Bonner's heart pounded as he watched the cities fall, his mind racing with disbelief. This was no ordinary attack. This was something far worse. "Bonner, we need to move," shouted his second-in-command, Riley, his voice tense over the comms. Bonner snapped out of his daze and nodded. The urgency in Riley's voice snapped him back to reality. They were trained for combat, but nothing could prepare them for this level of destruction. The first attack had devastated several major cities, and Bonner knew that more were coming. As Bonner and his team began to move, trying to get to safety, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. These alien warships, massive, sleek, and highly advanced, were more than just an invasion force. They were powerful, almost godlike in their strength. Cloaking devices made the ships nearly invisible until the last possible moment, and their weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They fired in rapid bursts, disintegrating anything in their path, and their robotic soldiers poured out onto the streets, attacking anything that moved. "We need to get eyes on their command structure," Bonner said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. He was a leader, a soldier who had been through hell and back, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this. Riley nodded, his face grim. "Understood. We'll find a way to take them down." But even as they strategized, Bonner's mind was racing. The aliens' technology was light years ahead of humanity's, and they showed no sign of slowing down. Earth's defense systems were being overwhelmed. Despite their best efforts, military forces from around the world were struggling to hold their ground. Every countermeasure seemed futile against the alien onslaught. As Bonner's team moved closer to the main city's perimeter, they saw the true scale of the attack. Buildings were on fire, and people were running in every direction, trying to escape the madness. But there was no escape. The alien forces, led by their sleek warships, methodically destroyed everything in their path. It wasn't just a simple attack. It was a full-scale invasion designed to obliterate humanity. Yet, something gnawed at Bonner. The aliens' tactics were too precise, too methodical. "Bonner, we've got a situation." Riley's voice crackled in his earpiece again, bringing him back to the present. "We've intercepted some of their communications. They're talking about Earth like it's some primitive planet. They think they're fighting the lower species." Bonner's stomach dropped. What? Earth was a planet full of highly intelligent life and technology. How could they think it was primitive? The more Bonner processed this information, the more the situation didn't make sense. Why were these invaders so sure that they were dealing with a weak, underdeveloped planet? What was their goal? Then, everything clicked. The enemy had no idea what they were dealing with. They were attacking Earth, but they didn't know that the humans they were fighting were, in fact, their own distant descendants. These aliens weren't invaders from another world. They were humans. Humans who had long been lost to space, altered by generations of living on other planets, and evolved into a new race of beings. They had forgotten their origins, lost to time, and the vastness of space. Bonner's heart pounded as this realization hit him. The invaders weren't some hostile species from the stars. They were human, genetically altered and separated from Earth centuries ago during the early space explorations. Their bodies had evolved to survive in harsh, alien environments, but they still shared the same bloodline as the people they were attacking. "Riley, these aren't aliens. They're us," Bonner said, his voice low, filled with disbelief. Riley didn't respond immediately, and Bonner could hear him processing the information. "Are you sure?" he asked, his tone serious. Bonner nodded, though he knew Riley couldn't see him. "I'm sure. These are humans, just changed, altered, evolved. But they're still human." A chill ran down Bonner's spine as he looked at the chaos around him. How could it have come to this? How had these humans, so far removed from Earth, come back to conquer it? And why didn't they recognize their own kind? Bonner knew this war was going to be unlike anything the world had ever seen. The enemy was powerful, but the humans had something else: the will to fight. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for their very identity. This battle wasn't just about Earth. It was about humanity's past, its future, and its very soul. But for now, the focus had to be on survival. As Bonner's team continued to maneuver through the war zone, they knew that the real fight was just beginning. The invaders, their own kind, were powerful, but they had one advantage. They were not prepared for the human spirit. And that spirit, Bonner knew, would lead them to victory, no matter how dark the days ahead seemed. As the war between Earth and the alien invaders raged on, the world stood in shock, struggling to make sense of the devastation. Bonner and his team, alongside Earth's military forces, were left reeling from the unexpected assault. The aliens' attack had been swift and devastating, and yet, despite their advanced technology, humanity was not backing down. The initial panic had given way to something stronger: determination. Earth's military had always been prepared for the worst, but nothing could have prepared them for the alien forces that now threatened their very existence. The alien fleet was unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. Cloaked ships, robots designed for war, and AI-controlled drones that seemed to anticipate every move Earth's forces made. The invaders were not just stronger. They were efficient, calculating, and relentless. They wiped out entire cities in mere hours, and their weapons systems were so advanced that Earth's defense systems were virtually useless against them. But even as Earth seemed on the brink of destruction, Bonner knew that humanity's survival instinct would not be so easily crushed. Despite being technologically outmatched, the human spirit refused to be extinguished. The fight wasn't just about it was about survival and identity. Bonner and his team, stranded in the war zone, had to figure out a way to turn the tide. They were outgunned, their communications cut off, and their military infrastructure crumbling under the relentless assault. But Bonner refused to give up. If humanity was going to survive, they had to find a way to fight back, no matter the odds. The battle took a strange turn as Bonner and his team stumbled across an old forgotten archive, deep within a bunker that had once belonged to humanity's early space explorers. It was buried under rubble hidden from time itself. As Bonner and his team made their way inside, they discovered it contained the lost history of the first human mission into deep space, an expedition that had long been erased from Earth's records. The archive contained detailed records of the crew that had left Earth centuries ago. The mission, led by the best and brightest of humanity, was supposed to be a peaceful exploration of the stars. But something went terribly wrong. The crew, while exploring an unknown system, was forced to crash land on a hostile planet. The planet's environment was unforgiving, harsh, toxic, and uninhabitable for humans. But the crew was determined to survive. To endure, the humans had been genetically altered. Scientists aboard the ship had used the planet's resources to enhance their bodies, allowing them to adapt to the toxic atmosphere, the extreme cold, and the lack of breathable air. The crew had been forced to evolve or die, modifying their DNA to fit the environment. Over generations, their physical forms changed, growing taller, stronger, and more resilient, but at the cost of their humanity. The problem was, as they evolved, they became more and more isolated from their origins. They forgot their mission. They forgot their connection to Earth. They forgot who they were. Over time, the descendants of the original crew had lost all memory of Earth, their home planet. They had no idea they were related to the humans they were now attacking. The shock hit Bonner like a freight train. These were not aliens. These invaders, the ones who had destroyed Earth's cities, the ones who had crushed humanity's defenses, they were humans, just like him. They were his ancestors, but they had been altered beyond recognition, their memories lost in time. They had forgotten their roots, and now Earth was the enemy, the primitive, uncivilized world they felt justified in conquering. Bonner's mind raced as the weight of this revelation sunk in. The alien invaders weren't just another hostile species. They were a lost part of humanity, a fractured branch of the same tree, twisted by time and space. Their home was Earth. They were Earth's descendants, but so far removed from the planet they had once called home that they no longer recognized it. To them, Earth was a forgotten relic of a primitive species, an easy target for conquest and destruction. "Are you telling me that these are our people?" Riley asked, his voice barely a whisper as the reality set in. Bonner nodded grimly, unable to put the full weight of his feelings into words. "Yes, these are humans, but they're different. They're what we could have become if we hadn't been left behind all those years ago. They've forgotten everything about us, and now they think we're the primitive species." Bonner's voice trembled, his anger and confusion rising in equal measure. How could this happen? How had they become so lost, so disconnected from their roots? Back on Earth, the situation was growing increasingly dire. Despite the horrors that had already unfolded, humanity had begun to rally. Earth's forces, realizing they were fighting against their own people, lost descendants of their ancestors, had to make a choice. Do they fight to annihilate these invaders and protect their world, or do they try to find a way to communicate with them, to bridge the gap between the past and the present? Internal conflict began to tear at the heart of humanity's resistance. Some of Earth's leaders believed that the only way to survive was to destroy the invaders completely, to wipe out this corrupted branch of humanity once and for all. They saw no other way to ensure the survival of Earth. "They've come to take everything we have," one of the generals declared. "We can't reason with them. We have to destroy them before they destroy us." But others, including Bonner, weren't so sure. He understood the hatred, the fear, the desire for vengeance, but he also saw the possibility for something else. These invaders were human, just as he was. There had to be a way to reach them, to remind them of their origins, to help them remember who they were before they became something unrecognizable. "I don't know if we can win this war with force alone," Bonner said, speaking to his team as they prepared for another mission. "But I do know that we have to try. We can't let ourselves become like them." We can't let this war destroy everything that makes us human. The world was divided. Some wanted to fight, to kill, to erase this enemy from the face of the earth. But Bonner knew that the true battle wasn't just about survival. It was about humanity's soul. And if they lost that, then what were they even fighting for? As Bonner and his team continued to gather information and strategize, the reality of the situation became clearer. The conflict between Earth and these alien invaders was not just about technology, weaponry, or even survival. It was about the very nature of humanity itself. The invaders were humans, but they were so far removed from Earth's history that they no longer recognized the planet as their own. And as the fighting continued, Bonner's team began to realize that their greatest weapon might not be their advanced technology or military might. It might be their ability to connect with these lost descendants, to remind them of who they truly were. But with time running out, and the battle growing fiercer, would humanity have enough strength to prevent the total destruction of everything they held dear? The truth about the alien invaders had shaken humanity to its core. The aliens, as Bonner and his team had discovered, were not just a foreign race from the stars. They were humanity's own descendants. Genetically altered over centuries, they had forgotten their origins and now saw Earth as a primitive world ripe for the taking. The question that now loomed over Earth's leaders was agonizing. Should they destroy their own kin to protect their world, or should they attempt to find common ground with these lost descendants? As the war raged on, the humans were torn between these two paths. Some argued that the only way to guarantee Earth's survival was to eliminate the invaders, to wipe them out before they could conquer humanity once and for all. Others, including Bonner, felt a desperate pull toward diplomacy, toward trying to reach some kind of understanding, even though it seemed almost impossible. But while humanity debated their next move, the alien forces were far from idle. They were adapting, learning, and improving with every battle. The aliens had superior technology, including cloaking devices that made it nearly impossible for Earth's forces to track their ships. But that wasn't their only advantage. The aliens' AI-controlled war machines were fast and efficient, learning from each encounter and counteracting Earth's defenses. In response, the humans pushed back with everything they had. They adapted old military tactics, ones that might seem outdated in the face of the alien onslaught. But it was the only thing that gave them a fighting chance. They used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run missions, and clever diversions to keep the invaders off balance. It wasn't enough to win the war, but it was enough to keep hope alive. Yet, despite their efforts, the situation grew more dire every day. The aliens were relentless, and they had begun orbital bombardments, an attack from the heavens that rained down destruction on Earth's major cities. New York, Tokyo, London, Paris, one by one, iconic cities were obliterated by the alien onslaught. Thousands died in an instant, entire populations erased in moments. The death toll was climbing rapidly, and the once proud cities of Earth were now nothing but rubble. As the bombs fell, Bonner and his team, along with the rest of Earth's military forces, fought tooth and nail to slow the aliens down. There was no time to waste. Bonner knew that if humanity didn't act quickly, Earth would be lost forever. Bonner knew that humanity's only hope of survival lay in getting to the heart of the alien invasion. Their command ship, it was their central hub, the core of their operations, and if they could infiltrate it, they might be able to strike a decisive blow. Bonner and his team were given the difficult mission of infiltrating this heavily guarded vessel. They knew the odds were against them. The alien forces had eyes everywhere, and they had the upper hand in technology and firepower. But Bonner was determined. He couldn't sit idly by while the world he loved crumbled around him. He couldn't bear the thought of losing the fight and watching humanity disappear beneath the alien boot. Using a mix of stealth, strategy, and the limited resources at their disposal, Bonner's team made their way to the alien command ship. Their journey was fraught with danger at every turn. The aliens had set up a network of defenses, using drones and automated sentries to patrol the ship. Every room, Every hallway seemed to be under constant surveillance, and yet Bonner's team pushed on. It was in the belly of the alien command ship that they learned the full extent of the invaders' plans. They weren't just after Earth's resources. They intended to enslave humanity, to strip the planet of its natural wealth, and use the survivors as laborers for their own purposes. The alien race, long removed from their humanity, had decided that Earth and its people were theirs to control, their planet to exploit. Bonner's heart sank as he learned of the full scope of the invasion. The invaders weren't simply conquering Earth for its resources. They were planning to use Earth as their new home, to rebuild their empire on a planet that had once been their birthplace. They saw Earth as a dead world, a place to conquer and subjugate, not a place to reconnect or reclaim. It was in this moment of clarity that Bonner knew what had to be done. The alien leadership had to be struck down. The command ship had to be disabled. The invaders needed to be forced into retreat. But it wouldn't be easy. In fact, it would be the hardest thing Bonner had ever done. Bonner stood on the bridge of the alien command ship, his heart racing. He was staring at a massive control panel, a wall of screens and lights that represented the invaders' communications and control. All the data, the blueprints, the strategies, everything Earth needed to stop them was here. But he knew what the price would be. To destroy the command ship and send a message to the invaders, Bonner would have to activate the ship's self-destruct sequence. It was a risky move. If they were wrong, the entire alien fleet would know their position, and a full-scale retaliation would destroy any hope of survival. But Bonner made his decision. They had no other choice. It was either strike back with everything they had, or Earth would be lost. He gave the command, and the self-destruct sequence began. With the countdown ticking on the command ship, Bonner and his team fought their way through the alien defenses, knowing that they had to survive long enough for the self-destruct to be triggered. It was a race against time. The fate of Earth and of humanity's future hung in the balance. As they made their escape, the alien ship shook with explosions. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest. The ship was coming apart, but so was Earth's military. The invasion had spread across the globe, and the casualties were mounting. The orbital bombardments were only getting worse. The pressure on the humans was unbearable, but Bonner refused to stop. In a final desperate push, Bonner and his team were able to escape the alien command ship just before it exploded, sending shockwaves through the alien fleet. The destruction of their command ship sent the invaders into disarray. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens had to fall back. However, it wasn't over. The aliens were still on Earth, still attacking. Humanity had struck a powerful blow, but the war was far from won. Bonner and his team knew that they had to prepare for the final showdown, the ultimate battle for Earth's future. With the alien fleet temporarily crippled, humanity had a window of opportunity, but it was closing fast. Bonner and his team had made their move, but the road ahead would not be easy. The war for Earth's survival was entering its most dangerous phase. Would humanity rise above its fears, above its confusion and doubt, and fight for its future? Or would they fall to the same fate as their lost descendants, consumed by war and hatred? The war had raged on for months, and the stakes had never been higher. The alien invaders had pushed Earth to the brink of destruction, but humanity was refusing to back down. The truth was clear. The aliens had attacked their own kind, humans altered by time and technology. But these invaders were no longer the people they once were. They had forgotten their roots, and now they were enemies to the very world that gave birth to them. Bonner and his team, along with Earth's growing resistance groups, were determined to turn the tide of the war. Earth's forces, while still far outgunned, now had an advantage they never expected. They had begun to reverse engineer the alien technology. It was a risky move, but it had paid off. The once invisible cloaked alien ships, which had been nearly impossible to target, could now be seen, their ships glowing in the sky as if they were no longer shadows, but tangible enemies. With their cloaking technology disabled, Earth's weapons could finally lock on to the alien vessels, and that was a turning point. The resistance groups, small bands of fighters who had managed to survive the initial onslaught, had been working in secret, developing countermeasures against the invaders' most formidable assets. These groups were led by Bonner, whose leadership and tactical genius had inspired many to keep fighting despite the overwhelming odds. Now, with the alien ships visible and vulnerable, they would have a chance to strike back. The moment of reckoning arrived when Bonner and his team launched their most dangerous mission yet. They had received intel about a massive alien flagship, the center of the invaders' operations. If they could infiltrate it, they could disable the flagship's core systems and possibly turn the tide in humanity's favor. The stakes were high. If they failed, it would be the end for them, and likely the end for humanity. Bonner's team boarded the alien flagship, a massive ship that was more like a fortress in space than a vessel. The aliens had used their superior technology to create an impenetrable stronghold. Every inch of the ship was protected by automated drones, elite alien soldiers, and advanced eye-controlled defenses. The flagship was the heart of the invasion, and its destruction could cripple the entire alien fleet. The human forces faced unimaginable odds as they fought their way through the corridors of the flagship. The air was thick with tension as Bonner led his team forward, each step a potential death trap. Alien soldiers, who had been genetically engineered for battle, were ruthless, their bodies enhanced for speed and strength. But Bonner and his team had something the aliens couldn't replicate: the will to fight for survival. In an emotionally charged sequence, Bonner and his team engaged in close combat with the alien soldiers. Blades clashed, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the ship's metal walls. Bonner fought with a ferocity he had never known, his mind focused on the mission: destroy the heart of the alien fleet. His team fought valiantly, each member pushing their limits, knowing that if they failed, Earth would fall. As Bonner and his team moved deeper into the flagship, they encountered the alien commander, the leader of the invaders. It was a tense, heart-stopping confrontation. The alien commander was everything the humans had feared: strong, intelligent, and coldly ruthless. But Bonner had a secret weapon: Earth's new AI-driven technology, designed specifically to counter the alien AI systems. With this new advantage, Bonner's team was able to neutralize the alien defenses long enough to strike the commander down. The battle was fierce, and lives were lost. Bonner's best friend, a trusted soldier named Harris, was gravely wounded during the fight. His death was a painful blow to Bonner, but it only fueled his determination. Harris had always believed in the cause, and his sacrifice could not be in vain. Bonner knew that this battle was no longer just about survival. It was about honoring those who had fallen and ensuring that Earth had a future. Meanwhile, Earth's military forces were executing their own coordinated counterattacks on the ground. They had begun deploying a new weapon, a supercharged electromagnetic pulse, EMP, that was capable of disabling the aliens' AI systems. The EMPs were a game changer. The invaders' eye-controlled drones and warships, once unstoppable, were now vulnerable to human attacks. The tide of the battle was beginning to shift. The new weapon, combined with the human forces' relentless assault, began to take a toll on the alien fleet. Alien ships that had once seemed invincible now fell from the sky, their cloaking systems failing as the EMPs disabled their power grids. The resistance forces on Earth began to score major victories, and for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had a glimmer of hope. The victories were hard-earned, and the price of progress was steep. Bonner and his team continued to push forward, making sure the alien flagship's core systems were completely destroyed. But even as they celebrated their successes, the emotional toll of the war was evident. Bonner had seen countless comrades fall, and the faces of those he had lost haunted him. Harris's death weighed heavily on his heart, and he knew that every victory, no matter how sweet, came at the cost of someone's life. Despite the loss, Bonner couldn't afford to dwell on the pain. The alien invasion was still happening, and Earth's survival was still uncertain. The clock was ticking, and the aliens would regroup, find new strategies, and adapt just as they had before. Bonner had to stay focused. As the humans continued to push forward, the alien resistance grew weaker. The combination of the EMP technology, Bonner's team's success on the flagship, and the growing unity of the Earth's military forces started to break the aliens' momentum. The humans were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The emotional connection between Bonner and his team grew stronger with each battle. The losses, the victories, and the unwavering determination to protect Earth brought them closer together. They knew the war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had the upper hand. The battle for Earth's survival had reached a critical turning point. The human forces, though battered and bruised, were starting to turn the tide. The aliens, who had once seemed invincible, were now in retreat. Earth's resistance groups, led by Bonner and others, had found a way to use the invaders' own technology against them. The alien fleet was falling apart, and humanity had gained the upper hand. However, the war was not yet over. The alien forces were still out there, still determined to conquer Earth. But for the first time, Bonner could see a future where Earth could stand on its own once again. The fight was not over, but the odds were now in humanity's favor. The resistance had found its strength, and Bonner was ready to lead them into the final battle for Earth's freedom. The war had dragged on for what seemed like an eternity, and humanity had given everything it had to survive. Cities were reduced to rubble, and the death toll had risen to unimaginable numbers. Yet, against all odds, the human spirit remained unbroken. The alien forces that had once seemed invincible were now on the brink of destruction. But the final battle was about to unfold, one that would determine Earth's fate. Bonner and his team had fought their way through the alien fleet, losing friends and comrades, but never losing sight of their goal. The heart of the alien invasion was a massive warship that served as the flagship, and inside it lay the alien commander, the leader of the forces that had ravaged Earth. The aliens had pushed humanity to its limits, and now it was time to face the truth. The battle for Earth's future would culminate in a showdown that would echo throughout the galaxy. Bonner and his team had reached the heart of the alien fleet, the flagship where the final confrontation would take place. The ship was unlike anything the humans had ever seen before, an immense vessel, sleek and dark, bristling with weaponry and shielded by an impenetrable defense system. It was the center of the invaders' power, and to destroy it would mean the destruction of their forces. The team navigated through the corridors of the flagship, their hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. They had already lost so much, and the stakes had never been higher. They knew that confronting the alien leader would be a gamble. Win or lose, it could determine the fate of not only their team but the entire human race. The atmosphere on the flagship was tense, almost suffocating. Bonner and his team infiltrated deeper into the heart of the vessel, moving silently through the maze of rooms and passages. Every turn brought them closer to the alien commander, but every step also brought them closer to danger. The alien forces had been preparing for this moment for months, and they knew the humans were coming. The ambushes had already begun. The final confrontation with the alien commander loomed large as Bonner's team breached the inner sanctum. Alien soldiers rushed to meet them, but they were nothing compared to what awaited them. The alien commander, the leader who had masterminded the destruction of Earth. The moment of truth had arrived. The alien commander stood tall before them, a figure of both beauty and terror. His skin was a shimmering silver, his eyes glowing with an unnatural intensity. He was the ultimate product of the alien race's genetic engineering, stronger, faster, and more intelligent than any human could ever hope to be. Yet there was something deeply human in his eyes, something that spoke of bitterness, hatred, and lost history. The commander's voice echoed through the room as he addressed Bonner and his team. "You are nothing but a failure, a lost remnant of a civilization long dead." He spat. "Your ancestors were weak, pathetic creatures who abandoned their true potential. You are no better than animals. You cling to a planet that doesn't deserve you." Bonner stood firm, his heart racing. The alien commander's words were cruel, but they only strengthened his resolve. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. This was about defending everything Earth had fought for. Bonner's voice was steady as he responded. "You don't understand. Earth is not weak. We have survived against all odds, and we will survive again. You may have forgotten who we are, but we will never forget what we stand for." The commander sneered, his eyes filled with contempt. "You are nothing. Your people are nothing. You think you can defeat us, but you will fail, just as your ancestors failed. Your species is destined to fall." But Bonner wasn't listening to the commander anymore. He was listening to the sound of his own heartbeat, the beating of Earth's heart. The same heart that had never given up, even when faced with the impossible. The same heart that would never back down. The final showdown was a brutal and intense battle, one that tested the limits of Bonner's strength and will. The commander was everything Bonner had feared, a master of combat, faster and stronger than any human. Every blow the commander landed sent shockwaves through Bonner's body, but he refused to give up. He had come too far to fail now. Bonner's team fought valiantly, holding off the alien soldiers who attempted to intervene, but this battle was Bonner's alone. He had to face the commander head-on. Each strike felt like it could be his last, but Bonner's determination only grew stronger. The alien commander may have had superior strength, but he didn't understand the one thing that humans had: resilience. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Bonner managed to disarm the commander. The two stood there, breathing heavily, their bodies battered and bruised, but neither willing to concede defeat. The commander's arrogance had led him to underestimate the human spirit, and now it was clear. Bonner would not back down. As Bonner and the commander clashed, the final assault on the alien fleet was underway. Earth's forces, now united under Bonner's leadership, launched a full-scale attack on the remaining alien warships. The new weapon developed by humanity, a powerful energy device capable of destroying entire fleets, was activated. It was humanity's last chance to win this war. The weapon was unlike anything the aliens had seen before. It harnessed the power of Earth's AI systems and combined it with the human ingenuity that had become Earth's greatest strength. As the weapon powered up, it sent shockwaves through the alien fleet, obliterating ships and sending debris scattering through the stars. The aliens had no defense against the weapon, and their once mighty fleet began to crumble. But the weapon came with a heavy price. As it fired, Bonner knew that the destruction it caused would leave Earth itself vulnerable. The weapon's power source was unstable, and it could tear apart the very fabric of space-time. It was a gamble, but it was one that Bonner knew had to be taken. The weapon's blast tore through the alien fleet, obliterating it in seconds. The once imposing alien forces were reduced to nothing but debris, their ships and soldiers scattered across the stars. Earth had won. The alien invasion was over. But the victory came at a cost. The aftermath of the battle was devastating. Earth's cities lay in ruins, and millions of lives had been lost. The weapon's power had destabilized large sections of Earth's infrastructure, and the planet was left reeling from the damage. Bonner and his team had won, but the cost of that victory was something they would have to live with for the rest of their lives. As Bonner stood among the ruins of the battlefield, he knew that Earth had paid a heavy price for its freedom. But the invaders were gone, and humanity had proven that it was not weak, it was resilient. The aliens had underestimated Earth's people, and now they knew the truth. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Bonner looked out over the wreckage, his heart heavy with loss, but also filled with hope. Earth would rebuild. The human race would rebuild. And the lessons learned from this war would shape the future of Earth, ensuring that they would never again be caught off guard by an enemy, no matter how powerful. The dust had settled. The final battle was over, and the alien forces had been defeated. Earth, battered and bruised, had emerged victorious. But the war had come at a heavy cost. The cities were in ruins, the death toll had been staggering, and the survivors were left to pick up the pieces of a broken world. Yet, amid the destruction, there was hope. This was not the end. It was a new beginning. After the victory, the survivors of the alien fleet were taken as prisoners. Some of the invaders, now disarmed and stripped of their power, were left in a state of confusion. Their once mighty empire had crumbled before them, and they found themselves prisoners of the very species they had come to conquer. These survivors were not all the same. Some of them, particularly those who had been more sympathetic to the human cause, were willing to leave their violent past behind and try to live peacefully on Earth. These alien descendants, though different from the humans in many ways, were integrated into Earth's society. They were given a chance to start anew. Earth, despite the scars left by the war, was willing to give them that chance. Humanity had learned that to move forward, it needed to embrace the future, even if that future included the very creatures who had once been its enemies. But not all of the alien survivors were so willing to change. Many of them were deeply hostile, and their hatred for humanity ran deep. For some, the genetic changes they had undergone over centuries had made it difficult to see humans as anything but inferior. They still saw Earth as a primitive planet, one that had once been their home but was now beneath them. These survivors were not interested in peace. They were filled with resentment, distrust, and a sense of superiority. They couldn't, or wouldn't, accept the idea that humanity had defeated them. The survivors were divided, and the situation on Earth remained tense. The alien descendants who had chosen to live peacefully integrated into human society, but the others were kept under close watch. They were given the opportunity to surrender their weapons, but their hatred remained. Earth's leaders understood that the danger wasn't entirely over. The surviving invaders could still pose a threat if their hostility was left unchecked. As Earth began the long and painful process of rebuilding, Bonner found himself alone in his thoughts. The victory over the alien forces should have brought him peace, but instead it brought him deep reflection. He had just fought against his own kin, the descendants of humanity's first intergalactic mission. These were not mere invaders. They were people, altered by time and circumstance, who had forgotten their origins. It was a truth that Bonner had struggled with throughout the war. The aliens he had fought against were not so different from him. They shared a common ancestry, and yet they had become something else entirely. Bonner had witnessed the devastation caused by this conflict. He had lost friends, comrades, and even pieces of his own humanity. As he surveyed the damage, he couldn't help but wonder what had gone wrong. How had the alien race, which had once been human, become so different? How had they come to see Earth as something to be conquered, rather than a place to protect? The war had been necessary. Earth had fought for its survival, and in the end, it had succeeded. But at what cost? Bonner couldn't shake the question. Had the victory truly been worth the destruction it had caused? The moral complexities of fighting against his own people weighed heavily on his heart. The truth was that humanity had fought a war against itself, and that left scars that wouldn't heal easily. In the wake of the war, Earth began to rebuild. The war had decimated entire cities, and the loss of life had been staggering. But despite the overwhelming challenges, humanity was determined to rise again. The spirit of resilience that had carried them through the war was still alive. Earth's governments, military forces, and citizens came together, pooling their resources to restore what had been lost. The alien technology that had been captured during the war became a key part of the rebuilding process. Reverse engineering the alien ships and weapons allowed Earth to gain technological advancements that would have taken centuries to develop otherwise. These advancements, combined with human ingenuity, made Earth a more powerful and connected world. Cities began to be rebuilt, new technologies emerged, and there was a renewed sense of hope for the future. Yet, despite all of the progress, there were still challenges to overcome. The alien descendants who had integrated into human society were not the only problem. The hostile survivors who remained distrustful of Earth's inhabitants were a constant threat. Some of them had been held in containment facilities, their actions monitored closely. But as time passed, their bitterness grew. Earth's leaders feared that these individuals might rally their fellow survivors and pose a new threat. They had to be cautious. Peace had been won, but it was fragile. Earth's victory over the alien fleet was not just a triumph of military strength. It was a triumph of the human spirit. A spirit that had refused to back down even when the odds were stacked against them. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but they had survived. They had proven that they were capable of standing up to any enemy, no matter how advanced or powerful. But this victory, Bonner realized, was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's history. The war had changed everything, and the future was uncertain. The alien descendants, those who had once been humanity's kin, would have to find their place in a world that had rejected their violent ways. Would they be able to reconcile with Earth, or would they continue to view humans as inferior beings? As Bonner looked at the horizon, he couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. Earth had won the battle, but the war for the future was far from over. The aliens had been defeated, but their legacy, both the technological advancements and the deep-rooted hatred, would remain. The descendants of humanity's first intergalactic mission still had a role to play in this new world, and their relationship with Earth would determine much of what came next. The possibility of future conflict loomed large. There were still many questions left unanswered. Would humanity be able to live in peace with the alien survivors, or would they once again become enemies? Could Earth and the alien descendants find common ground, or was a war that spanned generations destined to continue? The story of Earth's survival was far from over. It was only just beginning. Despite the uncertainty that lay ahead, Bonner allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope. Earth had survived. It had fought off an enemy that was far more advanced, far more powerful, and had emerged victorious. And in the process, humanity had learned something crucial, that it could overcome anything, no matter how impossible it seemed. The future was uncertain, but that uncertainty carried the potential for greatness. As Earth looked toward rebuilding, humanity was not only recovering from the war, it was becoming stronger. New alliances were formed, new technologies were developed, and the world's people were united by the shared experience of survival. Even with the scars of war still visible, there was a sense that humanity had emerged from this ordeal wiser, stronger, and more determined than ever before. Bonner knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but as he looked out over the future, he knew that humanity's greatest strength was its resilience. The battles may be over, but the journey was just beginning.